Morning.
Morning, mate. How you going?
Yeah, not too bad. The market's up and down again.
It certainly is. Yeah, it was a pretty positive start, but we're back to pretty much flat at the moment.
Yeah.
Banks finding some buying, resources finding some selling.
Yeah, I think if you have a look at BHP versus Commonwealth Bank, which we will in a sec, that they sold off pretty heavily and one got bought pretty heavily. I think just a little bit of coming back to earth for both of them.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. So,
Yeah.
yeah, let's get into the report and have a go from there.
Yeah, look, I'll stick a couple of slides up here and we'll have a look through it. Interesting. What are your takes on the budget?
Look, still a lot of uncertainty, I think, for investors. Obviously, changes to trust is probably going to worry some people. Certainly, it was quite a surprise one, I think. And the capital gains and negative gearing, we're going to have to see how that plays out in real estate markets. And obviously, it will flow into equity markets as well, but still so much to sort of go through with it. So let's see how reactions are from accountants over the next month or two when they start dealing with these matters.
Yeah, I think that's a key point. There's so much in this, and it sort of appears as if they've either very cleverly or not at all thought about second and third order consequences through to things like trusts. And that's just going to take a
Yeah,
month or so to play out. Then it's actually got to get through legislation. So I think we've got a little bit
yeah,
of uncertainty for what it really means for another, 3 or 4 weeks, I think.
definitely, mate, definitely.
Yeah.
So.
I'll put a slide up here just showing what's going on with banks and CBA is a bit of something worth having a quick chat about.
Yeah, look, most definitely, mate. Look, it was an interesting week last week. I think when we spoke about on the Tuesday that we had the rate rise. It was in CBA fell just below $170 a share, and then by I'm pretty sure it was Thursday afternoon, it had climbed back to $180. So had a crazy move there. But then when we saw Wednesday morning of this week, we saw them come out with a quarterly update, and it definitely showed some signs that things were getting tougher. I wouldn't say it was terrible for them, but definitely showed some signs that that the whole sector was probably finding costs are up a little bit, and bad debts were increasing slightly. It's interesting when you look through at the bad debts for the sector, they're still very low by historical terms. So our banks are still pretty well situated with managing their current mortgages. Mortgage arrears seem very low. Um, Margin pressures was probably one of the big topics that did get talked about, and something that came out of CBA's comments or update. Um, Looking through the sector and both Westpac and CBA are actually doing the best out of the majors with managing margin pressures from that update and from obviously Westpac's numbers earlier in the month. So definitely, sector's been under a lot of pressure. I think Gav, we had a couple of ideas earlier in the month about selling covered calls on a few of the banks, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah. I think you can see there a month or so ago where they were starting to get pretty high. It was worth looking at if you owned them, either lightning or selling covered calls, and a combination of their updates, oil prices, inflation, and then flowing through to the reporting. It really showed up in the CBA's
Yeah,
report. They were pretty toppy. I think it's probably a fair way to say it. And as you said, they're not in
yeah.
crisis mode by any means, but yeah, they were pretty toppy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, CBA is probably at that 180, sort of getting up to the most expensive bank in the world status again.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, look, I think a 150 to 170 range probably more easy for the market to justify.
yeah.
Yeah, I still think CBA is priced for very strong numbers and remaining at not quite perfection, but certainly being able to continue to come up with solid numbers and outgrowing the sector is the way
Yeah.
it's probably priced. So that's something to watch. But definitely from the read through, it is still doing that. It is still the golden sort of star of the banking sector. So it probably does deserve some sort of premium. And look, we've seen a really strong recovery since the sell-off on Wednesday, and obviously a bit of weakness the start yesterday. Stock's back over $160 a share today, so it's back up about $9 from where it bottomed out. So
Yeah.
definitely some buying coming back in.
That chart on the left's it's BHP on the black line, and the bar chart's CBA, so you can pretty much see the rotation when it started selling. Everyone just started buying BHP, and
Yeah,
there's a
definitely.
small
And
reversal in the last couple of days.
yeah, and the copper price movement definitely probably driven both BHP and Rio to some extent. Interesting to see copper back off a little bit last night, and you've got both BHP and Rio now down over 3%.
Yeah.
So a bit of a swing back the other way. So I suppose the theme we were going to talk about this week really was, is it time to come back into the banks and maybe exit resources? And certainly for any clients that are long any of the major resources, BHP, Fortescue or Rio, I think a covered call, which I think you've got on the next slide, isn't it, Gav?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was looking at Fortescue yesterday and even this morning, and you can see on the right-hand side there, it's just had a vertical run the last little while. And depending on where you bought it, you could easily think about selling covered calls in it at the moment, and there's a reasonable amount of premium in there. It's way above
Yeah,
any of its forecasted targets and consensus targets. So, it doesn't pay. You do get a bit of premium with Fortescue, and as I said, depending on where it sits in your portfolio, you could be looking to sell some covered calls there. I think I priced one up, nearly $1 away from where it's at the moment, and it was
yeah,
still paying a very reasonable premium. I think
yeah,
you've just got to watch what comes out of China over the next day with Trump over there, and I
yep.
think this trade something you could certainly look at. Probably out. The one I priced out there is actually out to June, so it's a good 5 weeks away.
Oh, look, I think that's a great strategy. Anyone who is long Fortescue, if you lost the stock at 23.51 with a 30 to 40 cent premium up your sleeve, you're doing pretty well. Be a very good chance to buy back into the stock at a lower price over the next 6 months. So I
Yeah,
think that's a really good call. And I think you could also put that same idea through both BHP and Rio. Certainly for BHP, a lot of people do own the stock. No one will have bought it above $60 from our clients. So
yeah,
if you own the stock, covered calls right now, I think would be a really good strategy. And then coming back to the previous slide, maybe look to if you do own the stock, if you don't want to just write a covered call, maybe looking to lighten some of the stock and move some of the money back into the banks. I feel we're at a level where the banks are attractive enough to start to dip your toe back in. I wouldn't sort of go hell for leather, but I'd certainly think clients could start to dip their toe back into the sector, which is, while the yields are still low, it's starting to look a lot more attractive than it has been for some time.
yeah. Good time to start averaging in. Have you got a favourite bank out of the four other than CBA?
Um, Look, it's a hard call. I don't mind ANZ. The new CEO is certainly driving a lot of change there.
Yeah,
So that's probably the one that I think's got the most chance of a recovery. Yeah, and looking at it, it's at $35 at the moment. I think for any client that was happy to look at an option position there, you could look at writing a put at sort of 34.50 or $35 out to June on the basis that you'd probably happily buy the stock with some pretty solid premium in the account, trying to get into the low sort of 34 level and looking for some decent upside from there over time.
yeah. I think ANZ's a pick for me as well. So yeah, nice one.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much
All
it
right.
from me, H, unless there's anything else.
No, that's probably it. Market, yeah, disappointing. We opened pretty strongly. We're now down about 20 odd points. Looks like a bit of a slide into Friday afternoon.
Yeah, that's particularly with still that Middle East uncertainty and Trump in China. It was going to be a bit hard to hang on to gains today, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So, and definitely that resource selling, which looks like it's actually building while we've been speaking. So
Has it
something
really?
definitely to watch.
Yeah, right. Okay, have a great weekend.
You too, mate. Talk to you
All
soon. Bye.
right.